I'll begin by just talking about the surge. So we experienced a surge at the end of July, and we were at the end of July, the last week of July, we were witnessing about 2,000 cases, new cases of COVID per day in the NCR, and that, of course, is what led to the exhaustion of our medical frontliners, who called for the reinstitution of the modified ECQ, and that modified ECQ was put into place August 4th. And we can see, if we look at the data, and I will uh, hand it over to Professor David in a few minutes to talk about the RT, but it's very clear that at the early part of the month, the caseloads began to drop. And the best way to talk about that is to talk about the decreasing reproductive rate. So I'm going to pass that on to my colleague, Professor David.
Okay, Professor.
Yes, thank you, Father Nick. Yes, so what Father Nick is saying is the trend is actually decreasing. So that is the good news. If you look at the number of cases, it seems like we're still getting a lot of cases, and it can be actually deceiving, because when we explain that the trend is decreasing, people always ask, paano ganun? We're still seeing 6,000 cases, 4,000 cases. Definitely, it looks like the numbers are still high. Pero we look at different trends, and not just yung reported cases, but also yung test center results and yung returns nila. And we're seeing actually a decrease in trend. This is an actual decrease in trend. Yes, it's actually decreasing the trend, but the reproduction number is decreasing. It doesn't mean, of course, the number of cases is necessarily decreasing. It just means the actual number of cases that we're seeing is less than what we would see if the trend did not decrease. I mean, that seems like common sense. Pero parang ganun siya. So,
Para kung the acceleration is going down.
Yes, it's like a deceleration.
Deceleration.
Right. But there's an actual decrease in number of cases. It was averaging 4,000 plus 2 weeks ago. So now we're averaging less than 4,000. So if we look at the number of cases, it actually decreased a little bit, not significantly, because yung effects ng MECQ, normally we will see that 2 to 4 weeks after the implementation. So there's a lag time to sa realization of the effect of the quarantine. So this happened in Cebu. Once we hammered down ECQ sa Cebu, after 2 weeks yung trend, it was decreasing, pero it seems like yung number of cases was still high. Pero right now, we're seeing Cebu flatten the talagang curve from 300 down to 90 cases per day, less than 90 cases per day. So that is a big improvement.
Data shows that the RT for Cebu is now around 0.5. And for you to understand what that means, because that means that one person is only capable of infecting half a person. So that means that the number of cases is going to decrease significantly over time. But as Professor David's pointed out, this is a gradual thing, and it will take weeks to see, which is why it's so important. And as we pointed out in our report, it's really important for us not to lose the momentum of the MECQ.
Okay, so let's get
Other than Cebu, what about
that's the big
nationwide?
question now for people. Everybody called for a timeout. 2 weeks was actually a compromise. The doctors wanted it was actually a compromise. But now we're at the end of those 2 weeks. So for the momentum that you say is very important, what would you recommend?
So I think, well, a couple of things. First of all, it's important to recognize that 12 of the LGUs in Manila still have critical numbers of hospital beds occupied, above 70%. So even though the numbers are trending down, the absolute number is still high. And so that the danger we have is that if we loosen up the GCQ without properly making sure that we will not repeat what we did before in the first GCQ, is that these numbers will again begin to rise, because the disease is predictable. If you don't change something, it will do what it did before. And so our team is proposing that an additional 2 weeks will really reinforce the downward trend. and we will end the 2 weeks with substantially lower number of cases than we would today, because a 2-week period is a single viral incubation time. And so you give the community in Manila an additional 2 weeks to allow viruses to die, really, without spreading to new patients.
Mhm. Okay.
So another 2 weeks will give you an actual dip in the absolute number of cases, not just the R naught.
Well, we saw in Cebu that a 4-week period would lead to a halving of the absolute cases. So if we're going to stay, and again, it's so hard to compare two different urban areas because there are very different demographics in play. Nonetheless, you're seeing that it was a quarter drop in 2 weeks, a half drop in a month. And so the hope here is that if we started off with around 1,500 per day on average, which is what we were seeing around the beginning of August, the hope is if we maintain it for another 2 weeks, we will drop below that 1,000, and that's a very strong position to begin the GCQ again.
But we're so far from that because the average now is still at 3,000 something. Is that something doable within the next 2 weeks, granting that the MECQ will be extended?
So keep in mind that 3,000 is spread out over many days. So the way that the DOH reports its numbers is that it's 3,000 reported today, but it was not for just today. It's for a few days. So what you do, if you look at the graphs, just at the beginning of the month, which is where our data is most solid, because in the last week the data is still changing rapidly. So you have to go a couple, 10 days before. It's about 1,500 on average per day, and that's a stable number. And so that's what we hope to push down even further. And I'm going to hand it over to my colleague to continue.
Yes. Okay. Yes, Guido, you also said in an interview that it will depend on the strategies, no, that that the government will be adapting. What would be these strategies?
Well, I mean, this is very important because last time we had ECQ and MECQ, the numbers were still low. So NCR, we were only averaging 200 cases per day. Hello?
Yes.
Go ahead.
We hear you.
Yes. Okay. So
yes.
Checking if I'm still okay. So we were averaging 200 cases per day at the end of May, and then when we got to GCQ, the goal was to maintain that. But the numbers got out of hand. Our hospitals got filled up, and that is the main problem here. So what we don't want is when we relax, numbers will again get out of hand, and we will not be able to control. So one approach would be to retain a strict quarantine, but this is not, of course, doable long term. Maybe we can do a 2 weeks or 4 weeks quarantine. But we have to sustain this. So we have to have set up proper interventions. So what we want, for example, if they want, and the government is trying, it's doing some thinking of what to do. So let's say we do localized lockdowns, but these have to be good localized lockdowns. You can't have a localized lockdown that will be for 1 day or 2 day long. I mean, it has to be maybe at least 1 to 2 weeks, 2 weeks for the incubation period. And then you have to increase testing because our positivity rate, as Father would attest, it's very high right now. The Metro Manila is around 16 to 17%. And that's very high. When your positivity rate is that high, it means your testing is not sufficient. Let's say you're not capturing all the COVID positive cases. So it means we have to increase testing even further. Maybe we have to increase it. Because right now we're getting maybe 17 to 19,000 tests per day. sa Metro Manila.
Nawala ulit.
Oo nga,
Okay, so
nawala.
I'll just pick up from where Professor
Yes.
Guido was talking. So
Yes.
again, when your positivity rate is around 16, 17%, I just want to remind you that the World Health Organization is asking for a positivity rate below 10% and ideally below 5%. So we are very far above that.
Yeah.
It means two things. One is we're not testing enough. And as as Professor Guido David was pointed out, we have to increase capacity. And it's been many months now, and the government is trying very hard to increase capacity, but especially now when there are more cases. So when you have high positivity rate, it means two things. One is we're not testing enough. The second is that there just simply there are more virus in the community. So we have to be able to identify them quickly in order to isolate and quarantine both patients and possible patients.
But
Dito.
with all these new developments, yung face shield, yung requirement for PCR test, and after 2 weeks of MECQ, have you changed your projection for the month? Ganun pa rin ba until end of August?
Yeah, right now we have very rough projections. We're seeing about 230,000 by the end of August, total number of cases. If we go back to some GCQ, yes.
Yeah.
If we retain it, we could maybe save 10 to 20,000 cases if we retain MECQ. So those are very rough projections because I mean we want to focus on the trend. It's not just the change in numbers, but actually controlling the trend because we don't want this pandemic to be getting out of control. And that's what happened in June when we started going to GCQ and we relaxed, binaba natin yung guard natin, we were medyo complacent. So that's when the surge started happening under our noses. And then when we realized it was already out of hand, the hospitals are overwhelmed. So we don't want to get into that situation again. So what we do want is if they do go to GCQ, we monitor this closely, but in case a possible surge is happening, we can possibly go back to a more strict quarantine. And I think that's one of the proposals of Father Nick, something like an alternating period of strict quarantine and looser quarantine, in case lang that we're seeing a possible uptick in numbers.
But Prof, I'm sure you read the story nung Saturday. It came out in the Manila Bulletin that it was quoting you as saying that extending the MECQ in Met Manila is not necessary.
Yes, I saw that, and it's a nice misquote from me. I don't recall saying it's not necessary. I mean, what I'm saying is MECQ is definitely. We have shown that MECQ has reduced the trend. If we continue the trend, if we continue MECQ, the trend will continue to decrease until the end of the month. Now, if they have better interventions in place, I'm more optimistic. When we do a relaxation, I'm more optimistic it will be better than compared to before. So, but we have yet to see the results of that. So, I mean, the decision is with the government, but I'm just saying if the interventions if we do relax the GCQ, the interventions have to be better. And it would give us more optimism if the interventions are better.